Hey, welcome to this week's Fox Weekly Roundup. Just a reminder of what these are all about. It's about updating all of you on the latest industry trends, any updates from a Fox firmware or hardware perspective, and just anything that's noteworthy as you end your week. Just giving you an opportunity to take a few minutes just to catch up on things that may be of interest to enhance or extend your battery and solar system that you've invested all those hard-earned pounds into. So this week there's no Fox announcements to cover, but I am excited to introduce Darren from ECO ESS, who is one of the suppliers for some specific hardware we're going to drill into today. Welcome, Darren. Tell us about yourself and ECO ESS.
Hi, Will. Thanks for inviting me on. My name's Darren. I'm the MD of ECO ESS. We're an importer and distributor of inverters, batteries, both commercial and industrial. We fund PPA, power purchase agreements for commercial solar, and we also have access to asset finance that allow customers to commercial customers especially to invest in renewables with zero upfront cost.
Awesome. For those that don't recognise the name, Darren's been a member of our group for some time, and specifically when it comes to enclosures and changeover switches, it just so happens that Darren is the face behind Eco ESS. They're often the sort of go-to products in that space. I hadn't connected the dots until recently, Darren, when you messaged me and said, "Hey, there's a lot of talk about batteries getting cold and about people wanting backup power for their house or whole home backup, and that you've got a few products that are, for a professional installer, dead simple to install and enhance the existing product that customer has installed." I'm particularly excited about these three products that we've gone into some detail behind the scenes on to make sure that they're the right type of offering for the equipment that people have on this group, and spoken to Darren also about some exciting discounts as well. So we'll drill straight into it because Darren, your business operates at the megawatt or more area as well. So from small changeover switches and isolators right up to grid scale battery storage.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
correct.
with the weather now starting, well, it's been getting cold and now it's getting colder. We're expecting a bit of a cold week this week as well. And for those customers that have batteries in cold or unheated spaces, so outside, bolted to the side of their house or garage, in a garage, some people in lofts, you'll notice that as the batteries cool, it's a well-known topic now after weeks of questions from people on it, and it happens every year. When batteries cool down, they have to slow down in order to stay within their set parameters. So if you've got a few options. You can move the batteries, you can replace them with a product that has built-in heating. But if you've got an existing investment and you just want uh, to keep that investment within an operating range, you have a product that does that, which is the Enclosure product. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that, Darren?
Yeah, this is something that we've designed and built really to enhance the life of batteries. So, as you've said, during cold temperatures, batteries derate. Sometimes they will actually go to sleep to protect the cells. What we've done is designed this enclosure. It's an IP65 enclosure. It's C3 corrosion protection and B1 fire rated. It's insulated inside with ventilation. So what you do is you have your inverter uh, based on the back wall of the enclosure. The batteries are fixed to the lower part of the backplate of the enclosure. What that does is it allows the heat generated in normal operation for the inverter to keep to circulate within the enclosure, keeping the batteries at optimum temperature. There's ventilation, so if the inverter is working too hard, getting too hot, the heat can dissipate through the vents. That it's thermostatically controlled. So if the enclosure gets too warm and above the set parameters for the batteries and the inverters, it will dissipate the heat. and use the and there's also a heating element within the enclosure as a backup that keep the batteries at the optimum temperature.
So not only is it insulated and fire rated, but it can both ventilate and heat.
Yeah.
I haven't seen very many products that do all of that, and the key thing that drew my attention to it is that, well, we see a lot of people on the group that are building a box out of, PIR board or Kingspan and putting that around the battery, and that will add a layer of insulation, but for most of them, it is just that it's a box that's been put over the batteries, and while that may solve the or reduce the problem for most people, there's no control in it. So if you forget it and you leave it on, you run the risk of potentially overheating the batteries. If there's a problem, you've just added potentially a source of sort of foam chemical. If that starts to break down and burn, that's probably going to give off some pretty nasty stuff as well. A lot of people do or don't respect the airflow and the gaps around the products that you have to ensure. So having an enclosure that is rated to all this. So I suppose what I'm saying is, if you have a battery that you don't want to add any additional risk to, if you buy a proper product that's purpose built for it and have it installed. In fact, that's the question: who installs it? Is it the end user or is it an installer, Darren?
A competent end user would be able to install this, but I would always recommend seeking advice from a qualified electrician. You're dealing with AC and DC. You're always better to use someone qualified to do the job.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially if you take it all apart to then assemble it again in the box, and you don't do this a day in, day out. Although a lot of the products now are easier to connect, like the Cube batteries, they're pretty foolproof now. They've got connectors that only work one way. So, but some of the old HV2600, the Myra batteries, they're easy to accidentally miswire and cause yourself a bit of a headache if you short circuit them, blow all the fuses. So if you have a battery that's in a location where it's not able to stay within its operating range, and you're genuinely interested in a professional product that is approved and you can install into your installation, that will do both heating and ventilating, and is a thing that you can forget about it. Unlike wrapping your batteries in Kingspan boxes to keep them warm during the coldest days and then thinking, oh, should I remove it? Is it warm enough yet? This is a product that you can just leave for decades alongside with your battery. Let alone the potential insurance complications if you do have a problem or a warranty issue. Both of those. If you've if you've done something to your battery system that isn't in the manufacturer's recommendations, you're going to have a problem either with a claim when something fails prematurely, or worse comes to worse, when the fire service investigate a loft fire or a garage fire because you've smothered your batteries and inverter in potentially a product that's not designed for that. Kingspan's normally put in cavity walls. It's not put around high power electronics. But for some people, I've seen some installations where they've respected the clearances required, the airflow required. They've got monitors set up in there. They've got small sort of greenhouse tube heaters. Some people that understand how to design an enclosure, even if it's made of timber, then great. This probably isn't the product for you. But if you're seeing your battery go offline or be significantly derated, and you're in that consideration of building a box, I would definitely check out Darren's product and the enclosures first, and speak to your installer about what it would cost to have it moved into the box. I think you'll get a longer and a better outcome going that way, and more peace of mind, especially if it's been installed in a location that you're not often passing through, like a loft or garage. I suppose this is a product that's needed for certain model of Fox batteries, because all the new stuff coming in should all be the heated variety now that stock has caught up with demand and some of the new recommendations from the BSI. So, anything to add on the enclosures? And just checking my notes. So, not only is it rated for everything, heating, cooling, ventilation, the space inside is compatible with the Fox equipment. So just let Darren know what inverter, what batteries you have, and they'll be able to make sure the correct size enclosure is the one that you're purchasing. Didn't mention about the security side, Darren, but they're lockable as well, right?
I was just about to mention that. Obviously, the new PAS document that's come out stating that the best place for batteries is to go outside. That isn't always the an ideal situation for people from a security aspect. So what we've done is we've put a 3-point locking mechanism on the unit, so you've got the security as well.
Brilliant, because there are people that you might have a property where you're a terraced house and you haven't got all of your electrics are at the front of your property, but you can install a cabinet and then plant a bush in front of it, sort of keep the curbside appeal. But or you might have children or animals in the garden, and you don't want them coming in contact with a lot of the products that are an inverter battery combo. There are still cables, even if you've done your best job to try and lag them in. There will still be cables unless you're going down the new Power Q route. So Fox are releasing an all-in-one that has no external cables, but pretty much all the Fox customers today will have some cables exposed, especially the DC cables. So it's probably more important for children and animals that may be interested in brightly coloured cables. So if you put it in an enclosure, not only are you potentially extending the life of your investment, because you're keeping the battery at a more stable temperature range, you're getting the performance out of the product, and just everything improves. When you take things out of direct contact with the rain, even if you've built a small lean-to or shelter, just the moisture, because these are IP rated, there's a gasket seal, is there as well, to keep...
There is, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's the enclosures. The next one, which is more of a smaller product, but it's one that a lot of us installers have come across, and that's the pre-wired MPPT connections. So I've moved to only using pre-wired now. Used to use the conventional ones that you would wire yourself, and it just added too much time and complexity onto the installation, especially if you're doing multiple large arrays, and they are a source of human error. So the BSI recommendations, as well as a few other recommendations, are that you don't double up on isolation. So if you have an inverter that has isolation, don't double isolate it, because you just increase the chance of creating another point of failure or a hazard on the installation. So having pre-wired isolators makes a lot of sense. They're so easy to use. You click them together. And Darren and I just last week were talking about the isolators, and Darren solved a few problems that I have with off-the-shelf or generic pre-wired isolators, and that's that typically you have an in at the bottom and an out at the top, and of course all the top terminals are all just exposed to any moisture and rain, so they're normally the ones where the seal fails first. A lot of the plastics feel good on day one, but if you go back to an install 3, 4, 5 years later that's had a bit of UV exposure from the sun, you'll find the plastics are really brittle, and when you go to remove the cover to inspect everything inside, that stuff just starts to break apart. So just cheap plastic on an expensive product, they're normally over £60 for just a single string input. So having the connectors at the bottom where they're not going to have ingress of rain running and constantly making seals wet, and building them out of proper robust plastics, and the fact that these pre-wired MPPTs can be multi-string as well. What sizes do they come in, Darren?
Anywhere from a single up to 8 units in a single panel.
Nice. So you can have really big arrays going through them. And is it still the best practice in terms of the isolation to only, from your perspective, what do you think about the isolation recommendations in terms of not double isolating?
I agree. Not double isolating, but with this, having the built-in surge protection, it's just about embraces. There are many instances where you need standalone DC isolation. So taking out the risk of poor termination by having them assembled in the factory, you're eradicating a lot of potential problems.
I didn't mention that they're surge protected as well. I don't see a lot of surge protection on the DC side. What's the logic behind that? Is that lightning surge or is it?
Yeah, lightning surge and regulations. I believe so. I've been told that if you have surge protection on your AC, you should have standalone surge on your DC.
Nice. And if you did have a surge that caused the SPD to fail, are they modular? They're just like normal SPDs that you can pull out and replace?
Yeah, they are. We've used the fused SPDs as well. So you've got the isolation, the SPD, and the fuse all within the single unit. And yes, they can be replaced.
Nice. Brilliant. That's the input because no one likes waste or throwaways. The fact that it's serviceable even after it's done its job in protecting. I mean, it's protecting the inverter fundamentally, right, and the other panels. So, an inverter for most of them, it almost seems size agnostic now. But an inverter seems to be £1,000, whatever size you go for. They just all seem to be floating around that price now, with £10 difference between a 7 and a 10 kilowatt inverter. It seems now the market's flattening.
Yeah, indeed. And these units come in multiple sizes, so from 600 volts up to 1500 volts, and standard 25, 32, 40 amp.
Yeah, pretty capable. So again, from an installer's perspective, just the time saving and removing another point where you could accidentally upset the polarity of your installation. It's quite common. We saw a post just a few weeks ago where someone was posting that their new array wasn't working. It was just down to the polarity had been switched over by accident. I think that was more terminating the MC4s, but it happens a lot with isolators as well. So, and if you don't install them perfectly, DC and it's arcing over a few days inside of a plastic enclosure, it never ends well. So having it all pre-wired, and there's no need to open it up on install except for the screws for the mounting, right, Darren?
Yeah, that's it. And the screw, the mount on the outside, we provide the brackets for those, so you don't have to open them up. You literally crimp on your MC4s onto your DCs and pop them onto the MC4s that are in place.
Awesome. So we've saved the best to last, the thing that I'm most interested in, and that's the automatic changeover switch. And this is a device that a lot of Fox owners, I think, would benefit from. And that is because, unlike a Tesla installation, where you get a gateway as standard for most installations now, and that gateway is able to switch between grid and off grid within milliseconds and allow you a completely uninterrupted whole house backup solution. So Tesla owners have been very smug with their installations having that pretty much as the standard for a long time now. Whereas with Fox and pretty much all other, I think Give Energy might have a smart hub now, but most other brands don't have a gateway that comes as standard and provides whole home backup as standard. And to have what's called the EPS port utilized as part of your installation is at an additional cost. And that means that the installer has to assemble an additional subboard with a bunch of components that allow it to do all of that grid sensing and transfer. But what you've built and what you offer, Darren, is a solution that's all pre-built, comes in a box, install it between the tails, between the meter and the house, connect the house, connect the grid, and connect the output to the inverter from its EPS, and all the switching is taken care of you. Again, all in a pre-wired. I can't overstate, when stuff's pre-wired as an installer, you can just screw it to the wall and make the final connections to the equipment. How much time saving. I'm trying to put together an idea of, well, when I build boxes separately, how many hours I spend doing that and sourcing the components versus just buying off the shelf. I think it's going to be, and then the time to install it. I think it's actually cheaper, economy wise, to buy a product that you can seamlessly install. And if you're an installer and you want to be able to offer whole home backup, then you have your costs almost fixed now. So you have the product to enable it, plus the additional wiring to run that loop from the EPS port back to this box. But it's a contained cost, so you can say to your customer, "Hey, so for £1,500, £1,700, you can have a complete on-off grid smart gateway, exactly like what you have with the Tesla Powerwall, but using and this product, although we're a very Fox specific group, this product will work with any inverter generator source, right, Dan?
That's correct. Any inverter that's got an EPS output, this unit will allow the house. So it's not just EPS; it's an islanding device. So it allows the panels to keep generating and the batteries to keep the house energized.
That's an important point. So if you've got all of that solar and you're having an extended power outage and you haven't got that grid connection, you can, depending on the size of your array and what the weather conditions are like, you could potentially be self-sufficient.
That's correct.
And we were talking last week when we were talking about the products, Darren, about, well, it's not that much more of a lift to put a smart relay in it and have the ability to have a sort of on-grid, off-grid button in your Home Assistant app. It's all extendable. I got a chuckle at the fact that you had to add LEDs to the box to indicate when it was on and off grid, because it's so seamless once it's installed that the customer isn't actually aware that they are having a power outage unless they're looking at their app.
That's correct. We've had customers say the only reason they knew that there was a power outage is because it come up with grid lost on their app. So, it's what we've done is we've designed it so as soon as the panel sees grid outage, it will switch over to islanding mode within 15 milliseconds. So no loss of Wi-Fi, no loss of clocks on the oven or the microwave. Going back when grid is restored, we've put a 20-second delay to comply with DNO regulations that state you've got to have 20 seconds for the grid to stabilize before going back, that putting the house back to grid. So we've covered that also.
So I suppose that avoids the sort of flicker where the power goes on for a second, then goes back off. When they try to reset the grid and it then re-trips, you're not having everything go on, go off, go on, go off. You've got that sort of pause to allow things to stabilize and then go back onto grid.
That's it.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that sounds so. If you're an installer or you're a customer and you're thinking about whole home backup, utilizing your EPS port to have a completely automated changeover experience that's safe and compliant. This is a professional product. You will need your installer to install it, because you will need to intercept your meter tails for this to work. So then that allows this box to then flick between what your power source is. Is it coming from the grid or is it coming from the inverter? And it handles it all. Are there any considerations or cons, downsides that people should think about in terms of the changeover switch, or just does what it says on the box?
Exactly what it says on the box. The only thing we would need to be aware of is the inverter output or the inverter that is being used with. The backup contactor is 63 amps, but the MCB on that is 40 amps. So if you're going with one of the 10 kilowatt single phases, we'd need to know so we can increase the size of the backup MCB. But that's the only consideration. And we do have the single phase and the 3-phase versions.
All right, that's true. And because some of I think all of them now, actually, all the new stuff, so the new Gen 2 H series and the K series, they can be paralleled for both grid and EPC. So that breaker rating is kind of definable by the customer when they order. So if they've got a large property with a 2 or 3 inverter battery setup, you can increase that breaker. So they're getting near to grid levels of connection power.
Absolutely, yeah. and we've got UK tech and engineer support, and the units are actually British made. They're made in our factory in Stoke.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's important. So it's not just an imported product that is being there's people behind this is in the UK that's assembling this equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the changeover switch I think is big. So if you're an installer, just having that option on the order form to explain to the customer, because I think there's enough confusion about it. I see so many posts saying, I've got a letter from my energy company saying that I'm going to have a planned outage. What do I have to do to run my house off the battery? And only for that disappointment when they realise that they're not connected to be able to benefit from their battery system. So as an installer, you can now clearly give them an option. Hey, the standard is there won't be any backup power. When the power goes out, the inverter will shut down, and you'll typically lose solar as well, depending on your setup. If you've got some space in your battery, normally the solar will just top the battery up while you're out, but you won't be able to run your house on it as standard for most installations. But having a box to be able to explain, hey, if you pay a bit more, we'll install this box, and you won't be able to tell the difference between being online or offline, grid wise. And especially if you're in an area that's prone to power cuts, I think this is a must. I think the small upfront investment in the cost of the box and the small installation cost will be paid back probably by the first time you have an outage and all your neighbours' houses are in darkness and you're not. You will be very popular, I imagine, on the street as well. Cool. Well, it's great, Darren, for you to reach out and to talk about these products as well. You're very kindly supporting the forum as well as a recommended supplier of a product, and you're
Indeed.
also able to offer our group members a discount on these products as well, unique to our group. So when you reach out to Darren, if you quote Fox G1, so Fox Golf 1, you'll be able to have 5% off of an isolator, £50 off of a changeover switch, and £30 off of the enclosures, which is a unique group discount. And also, if you've got any questions, Darren's business do a lot of other products. We've sort of grabbed the top three that I think are interesting and important that solve challenges for Fox owners. But check out ECO ESS because you do a whole bunch of other products as well, Darren. Do you want to plug any last products?
If we've got any installers doing commercial installs, we build G99, G100 panels. If you've got any control requirements, we build build and program the Siemens S7s. Any bay enclosures, low voltage panels, any type of switch gear that's needed, we could design and build that in our factory.
Awesome. I'm sure I'll be getting my changeover. I'll be ordering a changeover switch and installing it, and probably doing a review video on it as well. At the moment, I've got a little bit of a janky setup of using a subboard to really define my critical circuits. But there's always that one thing you forgot to add to your critical circuits that you want during the extended power outage. And as you know, the weekly/monthly storms are now pretty normal for the UK. This is only going to get more and more important, and if you can combine it with a smart relay to go on and off grid, you can then start to automate and start to get some savings around when you are using the grid, when you're not, things like, as well as having energy independence, being able to have that seamless transfer, all of it in a box that someone's already figured out the best way of getting approval to connect it all together. I imagine all the components in it are also replaceable. So if you did have a changeover switch, fail, wear out, you can just pop that specific component and replace it.
Yeah, and we do have engineers throughout the country who can replace those parts. Obviously, we wouldn't recommend anyone without the qualifications to open the box.
What's the warranties on the products as well, Darren?
So on the enclosures, the isolators, and the changeovers, it's all 2 years.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for
Right.
sharing about the products and the business. It's really exciting and interesting to hear of a business that's building megawatt level grid storage right through to pre-wired isolators and those products that just solve problems such as the changeover and the enclosures. So if any of these products are of interest to you, reach out to Darren. We'll put the details in the comments and also on the post. And yeah, if you've purchased any of these products and you want to upload a video to the group of your enclosure or your changeover switch in action, I'd be really interested to see it. Thanks for your time, Darren.
You're very welcome. Thank you.